In today's episode of HR Visionaries, we talk to Lucy from 8roads. Lucy supports the portfolio companies of 8roads in finding the great people they need for the growth. Stay tuned. Welcome to HR Visionaries, where we unlock the secrets of modern HR. I'm Benjamin, your host. Join us as we shed light on today's HR universe with HR leaders and innovators from across the globe. Whether you're an HR pro, a business leader, or just curious about the future of work, this is your shortcut to the forefront of HR innovation. Brought to you by Hire, the AI talent attraction platform. Welcome to today's episode of HR Visionaries. I'm looking forward to my guest today, Lucy. Lucy, thanks a lot for being with us.
Pleasure. Really great to be here.
Lucy, would you mind telling us a bit about yourself in like 5 or 6 sentences? Who are you?
Yeah, absolutely. So, who am I? I've spent the last 18 years in executive search, passionate about people. I've always seen my role as giving people the opportunity to sort of improve their lives. I present opportunities to people and help them to discover what's next. And I take that as a real privilege. So I love what I do. I moved into venture about 1.5 years ago, having spent 3 or so years building the leadership teams of venture-backed startups and scale-ups. And I've got to say, I've never looked back. I'm really enjoying my time this side of the fence. Outside of work, I'm a pianist. I'm a classically trained musician by background. I spend a lot of my time trying to sort of dive into my music again. I do a lot of reading. I'm a real geek. And I enjoy exercise and walking, and food. I'm a big foodie.
Okay, well, I have so many follow-up questions. So first of all, who's your favorite composer?
Oh my goodness. I like Chopin, actually. I'm pretty, classical in my sort of usual preferences, but otherwise when I'm not listening to classical piano music, it's going to be jazz. Always jazz, but if Scott Joplin never goes amiss.
I need to send you some YouTube videos. So there is a composer in Berlin who creates amazing pieces of music on very party hit style songs. It's absolutely amazing. Okay, I need to
look it up.
I need to send you this later. It's pretty cool.
Please do.
You mentioned you were in executive search for quite some time. You are a pianist by training. How come?
I probably, if I'm honest, wanted to be a musician early on. I fell into recruitment many years later, having decided to actually study French. I realized that, perhaps music wasn't, a viable career route. And once I'd studied French and spent 1 year in Paris, which was an incredible experience, I fell into recruitment. I think a lot of people fall into this line of work, and that's exactly how it happened for me. So really by chance, to be honest with you.
Well, you just mentioned you like showing people opportunities, helping or supporting people to find great opportunities. In which way do you find this rewarding?
I think, I'm fascinated about people's stories. I think it's just wonderful to have the opportunity to spend my time hearing, people's incredible, career stories, helping them to see things a little bit differently and to step back. A lot of executives don't have the time to really sort of think creatively about their careers and what's next. And I, see it as my role to try and sort of do that thinking for them. So, that's what I enjoy the most about it. I think it's hearing people's stories, finding ways to help people to see what's next, even when it's the unexpected.
How do you find out what people like, what people are great at? So what are the questions you normally ask to understand where people come from, what's their background, etc.?
Yeah, that's a good question. I usually start by giving someone the space just to tell me their story. And I think through hearing that story, I will, find opportunities to, interject and go deeper in certain areas. But what I'm trying to understand is, who are you as a person? What really matters to you? I'll ask a lot about, what people would describe you as a leader. How do you come across as a leader? What do you really care about as a leader? And just really get into the person. And that helps me to see what feels like the right type of sort of fit, and what feels like the right kind of role. It might not be a title that they thought about, but actually I think it helps me to sort of get a sense of the individual and what they're going to really enjoy doing next.
Well, in terms of leaders, so what do you think are skills a leader must have to be successful in his own career, in leading other people? So to being a meaningful and a mindful leader?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think it's knowing who you are and what you stand for, knowing your team intimately. Some of the best leaders I've met are those that are very much aware of those in their team and what matters to them. And, leading by really, caring, and by, having a mission to what you're trying to achieve, I think is very, very important. And the same goes for building a team. Everyone's an individual within that team. Being inclusive in the way that you think about hiring is a really important component of building a great team. And I think the same goes for your leadership attributes. It's important to really think about how you're coming across as a leader and how you're impacting the others that you're affecting every day. And I think even more so in today's world, feeling a sense of belonging is critically important. Culture is so important to the success of the individuals within your team. And if you're thinking about it in the right way, you will find the right way forward.
Well, in particular, since you're working with founders a lot, well, the skills in terms of managing people, understanding how your team members doing, and so on. So to be a meaningful leader in a people's way, compared to being a leader in a technical way, in a content way, so to say, how does that merge, or how do you get those two things together? So let's say you're looking for a CTO opportunity or CTO position, and you have someone with amazing technical skills. However, the people skills may not be developed that well yet. So how do you approach those situations? I always, to be honest, I find this quite difficult to, since you sometimes have people who are content-wise amazing, however, in terms of people, kind of not there yet, and the other way around.
Yeah, that's a really difficult question to answer in many respects. I think it broadly depends on, who are your leadership team, who's your CEO, what is the sort of mix of personalities coming together within that leadership team, and what do you add to that as a leader? There's no right or wrong, but I think it really depends on the situation that you're coming into and what you're adding, and how you're getting the best out of the people within your team. You might be completely different in the way that you think to a lot of your team. It doesn't mean that you can't be a great leader of those people. So I think it starts by being very clear about your vision, what you're setting out to achieve, making the best of the attributes of those that you have around you in your team, and just being very, very clear about the direction that you're setting, and how you're bringing the best out of all those individuals. So I think it's a balancing act really between being thoughtful about how you show up as a leader and how you're impacting others, but actually also about how you're getting the best out of others and how you're enabling others within your team. There's a sense of togetherness about team interaction, and I think it's important to see that as a leader. The direction doesn't all need to come from you. Actually, you can help individuals to really contribute in a meaningful way to that bigger picture. If you're very clear about your vision, that is possible.
Can you tell us a bit more about what you do now in your role?
Absolutely. So look, zooming back a little bit, I never imagined I'd find myself in venture, let alone in tech. I actually spent my early career on the consumer side with a small executive search boutique, and I moved in-house to work for the likes of Nestle. I went on to join Korn Ferry on the tech side, actually with one of their largest accounts, Vodafone. That's what took me into tech for the first time. And from there, many years later, I found myself at Facebook, going through a really big scaling initiative. We moved from 2,500 people to 6,000 over the time that I was there. So it was a real growth and transitionary period, the days of Cambridge Analytica, if you remember it. So a huge amount of change. And that backdrop has, gotten me passionate about the sort of paciness of scale up. The mission of founders in this space. There's such a lot of change to continually navigate. I wanted to make a difference to that, and so gradually have sort of gotten myself to a place where I've gotten closer to that scale up and startup arena. I joined the Up Group post my time with Facebook, where I was building the leadership teams of venture-backed businesses. So really got deep into how do scale-ups build their leadership teams effectively, put in pre-Series A CEOs, and really sort of understood what it took to contribute meaningfully to the scale-up arena. And that's what's led me here into venture, to try and go deeper and to try and impact positively the lives of founders who are navigating so much at this moment in time.
Indeed, and well, I need to ask you about your time at Facebook. Going
Sure.
from 2,500 to 6,000 is, well, it's numbers, but on the other hand, it's probably a very different culture. It's a very different company in the end.
Completely.
That 2,500 is like a medium-sized company. 6,000 is like in direction of a multinational. Then, well, just alone for the UK. Then, tell us more about this. So, how did you guys approach those challenges that then came with, hey, can we keep the quality of people? Can we maintain our culture? Can we improve our culture?
We were a very sort of network-driven organization, and I realized the importance of, really building solid networks, particularly important as you're scaling at pace. So it was all about your relationships. It was all about, diving into, a broader range of programs, really thinking about how you can impact the longer-term direction and professionalization of the business at pace. So I spent a lot of my time at the early days bringing in some of the rigor that I'd seen at the likes of Korn Ferry earlier in my career to our executive search practices across EMEA. We were a fledgling team of about 5 in EMEA when I joined, and that didn't change actually, despite the growth that we saw. So we were still looking after a lot of search across a very critically sort of high growth region. And I was working on some of the search that you can imagine is quite complex that I'd never seen before. I worked for Nick Clegg's organization on the public policy side, put in some of his directors, looking after things like child protection, very, very critically important roles, some of which I'd never had any exposure to before. So it was about really ramping up, upskilling on the job, using your network to navigate and to sort of get to the things that perhaps you hadn't done before. For instance, public policy it was an area that I'd never had any access to before. So through my network, I managed to reach the right talent. I sat down with people across the team globally regularly to talk about their networks, how I could tap into the right people to bring the right talent into the organization. And I met regularly with people to really get my head around what a company like Facebook needed right now. And otherwise it was a lot of reading, a lot of learning and personal growth as I went. So you have to take responsibility for that and scale up. It's not something that someone's going to do for you. You have to go and find the answers yourself. And I think having a close network, both internally and externally, is a great way of doing that.
Well, those companies like Meta, like Google, like Apple, Amazon, they have grown that much over the last 20, 25 years, there must be something they do different than other companies. And can you identify some things that you would say, okay, well, those companies do incredibly well, and those companies do extremely well, and when you're now talking to founders, those are some things you might want to adopt, given they work for these companies very well in a
that's a really
rapid
good question.
scale up. Well, it's kind of the $1 million question, but I thought, okay, I might try it.
It's a good question, and I think when I sort of sit back and really think through, what did I learn? What was the thing that really stood out and resonated with me? And it was network, it was interaction, it was really understanding how to, through people, get to the right answers. You have very little time, you're working on so many things. It's all about the community and the network that you build around you. Absolutely critical, to moving at pace in an environment like that. You cannot survive without a network.
Yeah, that's very cool. And you can you tell us a bit more about your job at the moment? So we mentioned several times you work with founders a lot, you support them at a very early stage to get the right people on board. Can you let us know a bit more about this?
Absolutely. Just zooming back to sort of who are we as a fund. We're an entrepreneurial bunch, and we really care about value for our founders. Not knowing the game can really hold entrepreneurs back. And it's my belief, again, going back to my point around network and community, is that that's where it all begins for founders, giving them, of course, a strong understanding of the financials, where they're headed, but actually being able to sort of unpack the art of the possible by giving them a close, understanding of who are the right people, who've seen it before, where can I help you to network with people that have done it before and that can help you. How can I help you to think about how you're setting yourself up for success? And I think that's one of the ways that we try and help our founders. We're a team of a number of venture partners. A lot of my colleagues come from broad backgrounds as functional experts. Between us, we look to really help to unpack and to sort of give founders an opportunity to really sort of spar on some of the challenges that they're facing. We try to find solutions for them. We bring our networks to life to broaden those solutions. We're also quite a fragmented portfolio of companies. We are very broadly spread across a number of different domains in the SaaS arena. What a Series C founder in Ghent, Belgium, or in Malmo, Sweden, needs are very, very different. And I think it's just appreciating that complexity of challenge and trying to continually challenge ourselves to find the right solutions for that. And I think a lot of it starts with opening up that network, making the right introductions, helping founders to help themselves in many respects, and then filling the gaps through the solutions that we can productize and provide. So we're continually reimagining value creation. And I came in a year and a half ago to try to put a bit of a different stamp on that, and we're still continuing to iterate on those things.
Can you tell us a bit about how do you talk to founders, given you're obviously the investor, you're a very important shareholder of the company, and you represent the shareholder and then give advice. How do you manage to talk to people you invest in on a level of equals?
Yeah, and look, this is something that I'm continually rethinking. I have 45 companies across Europe and Israel to impact. There are going to be companies that really want help and are closely sort of aligned on the value creation offering that we're providing. We're a minority investor, of course, and so there are others that will work closely with other VCs on their cap table to sort of dive into other elements. So I think it's about listening, finding the right route to get to know and understand the challenges portfolio companies are facing, building strong relationships, understanding where those companies are in their growth journeys. When I started with the fund a year and a half ago, I spent a lot of time traveling to do exactly that, to really understand how to earn my seat at the table, how to really sort of hear what was going on across the portfolio, and I'm still learning. And I think that learning will continue. So I think beyond that, it's staying close to my partners, my board members, making sure we have as regular check-ins, as possible, and reading, informing myself, continuing to challenge myself on what great value creation looks like and means. It's such a diverse role. You can take it in so many different directions. There's not 2 days that are the same. And I think beyond what I've just sort of outlined, I need to have a network. I need to stay close to, a wide network of executive recruiters. I need to, use those networks to impact my companies in the right way. I meet with peer groups regularly. I try to sort of understand how others are approaching the topic of value creation. But I think continually challenging yourself and hearing what's going on the ground, finding different ways to get closer. Those are all things that are really, really critical, I think, to being successful in this job. It's never done. Don't ever step back and feel like it's done, because it's not going to be. I think it's just a case of continually challenging yourself, continually hearing what's going on, and finding the best route forward.
Okay. Could you give us some examples how this looks on a day-to-day basis? So would it be like, so if a founder, so let's say we are a SaaS business, you were invested in us, and I would then call you, hey, Lucy, I want to scale our sales organization. Can we work together on how to get great people on board, how to find great SDRs, how to find great salespeople, how to find great customer success people, and let's work on a strategy there. Would that be like one of your business cases?
Very much so. That's something I hear a lot. And as you can imagine, a lot of our companies are continually challenging themselves around how to scale internationally. Mm-hmm. And that's typically, focused on, that go-to-market leader that's really going to make a difference in getting them there. We've got a venture partner who has successfully scaled many businesses and is someone that is very close to go-to-market across the portfolio. And in addition to the support he offers, I spent the last 3 years prior to coming into 8 Roads building commercial leadership teams, in particular for scale-up and startup organizations right through the growth curve from Series A through to Series D. This is where my network is strongest. So I spend my time continually checking in with the candidates that I know through previous search interactions, have built strong relationships with over the years. But I think, again, getting to know the specific challenges of those portfolio companies and trying to sort of get ahead of the curve by, building the right pipeline of talent and making sure that we can find the right hook to really attract that talent at the right time. That can be challenging in a very competitive landscape. This talent is, in short supply in very many respects. They're continuously being tapped up. They've got close relationships with executive recruiters that they tap into regularly. I need to stand out of the crowd. I need to make sure that, 8 Roads is front of mind for them, and that the companies that we're endeavoring to attract them for are front of mind to them. That's always a challenge. And I think, working hard to find ways to continually find new hooks and new ways of attracting that talent is going to be critical. So it's continually trying to be relevant to those candidates, and that's where it starts for me.
Well, in terms of dealing with candidates, you probably then target those people who are very skilled, who are very motivated, that, well, also the big techs are after. So how do you communicate the value of the scale up to those candidates, that they, can be greatly motivated to join the team?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And look, everyone's motivated by different things. Mm-hmm. I think it's understanding what truly motivates a particular individual. And this is where it helps to have a really close network. If you know, superstar sort of CROs, and you have an idea about who the top people are out there that have seen, the relevant scaling journey, have a broader sort of B2B SaaS background, and can, be the people that we want to think about for these roles, that is where you start. You start by tapping into your network, and then it's about fit. It's about, is this person the one that's going to take this company through their next phase of scale up? And that means something different every single time. There's not one size that fits all. It could be a company at 6 million ARR that will need something extremely different to a company at the very early stages that might need someone a lot lighter, not someone that's going to come in and immediately have a budget to build a big team around them, but actually needs to carry the bag and really build that sales pipeline, really win some of those initial deals. So I think the challenge is different every time. It's really understanding what that company needs, challenging that from a leveling perspective, building the right scorecard, and really going out to market and finding the right solution. It's not the same every time. And I think it's being live to that.
It sounds like a very analytical approach.
Yeah, I think that's important. You've got to really challenge, and you've got to know what that particular company needs and what good looks like for that very specific company. You might find that domain's particularly tricky, or it's a PLG driven go to market, for instance, in which case you need someone that's seen that type of sales motion. You've got your sort of SME deals versus your sort of broad, sort of lengthy sales cycles at enterprise level, completely different skill set to what you'd look for at the PLG sort of motion. So you need to be aware of all these things and understand what a particular company needs versus their huge bucket list of demands. They don't always need someone that brings a huge amount of experience. Sometimes it's someone that's going to get there, but is going to bring the right sort of thinking now, at the stage that they're at. And it's being able to really hear that and translate it into the right solution.
What has been one of these amazing moments in the most recent months for you, where you could feel that you, as an external advisor who is however kind of internal, parachuted in, had a real impact on the progress of the development of one of your scale-ups?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Obviously,
there are many
basis.
examples. There are a number of examples. I would say I get involved, at different stages. There are various different challenges that I'll be asked to solve. I don't always work on something end to end for a company. It's a real mix of things. So it can go from, on the one end, building a search for a board member and being very, very specific about, who we handpick from the market. On the other side, it might be advising a company about how to build a search for a VP of product, introducing people from my network to give them a really good idea about what good looks like. And we then build that together and take a step back together and get really deliberate about leveling and how we're really thinking about that. I might then make an introduction to an executive search partner and really sort of manage that relationship end to end, working closely with the search partner to ensure that the search is on track and continues to build in the right way. And then I will get involved right at the end stage with negotiating compensation. Or it can be as little as we're preparing for a board and we're thinking about how to compensate our founder teams. How can you help us with this? And I will go out and deliberately find really specific examples and to tailor my response. So I would say it's pretty bespoke every time. There's no one size that fits all here. It's very difficult to say at Series A, this is how your org should look. At Series B, this is how your org should look. I think it's about being tailored in your approach, really getting to know each individual company, using your partner to get closer and continuing to sort of evolve your understanding of that company. So it's a job never done. And I think you've got to look at it that way.
What do you think are the great trends over the next few years in HR and talent acquisition, in making sure that that you find the people you need in certain situations?
Yeah, I mean, look, this is a really interesting time. The public markets are starting to wake up. The signs of an IPO window starting to prise open slowly. M&A activity's been also showing signs of picking up. There's 36 billion value added in the last year. So, nothing like the levels recorded in 2020 and 2021, but there's an improvement starting to evolve, I think. And despite the economic slowdown we're in the middle of, I think Europe's creating more startups than ever before. First-time founders are on the rise, which is wonderful to see. When it comes to trends, I think it's difficult not to mention the advancements in AI. Europe, incidentally, has more AI talent than the US, with around 108,000 operators versus 87,000 or so in the US. So, we need to keep that momentum in Europe and retain the best AI talent here as we go. Few European AI companies were created by, French or German founders that have previously worked in the US. So actually, we've got a lot of talent coming here or returning home from the US, having previously done international roles. I can give you an example from our portfolio, Raft AI, which was our latest investment. It's an AI logistics platform created by a former Harvard and Imperial expert and also a computer engineering and machine learning expert with a postdoc in AI from the University of Cambridge. So real experts with that international globality sort of to their experience that I'm talking about, but actually both from Europe originally and have come back to Europe to build their AI machine that is starting to see exciting scale today. So there's an exciting story starting to emerge. I don't think it's all bad. Although, of course, we've had a couple of really tough years. There's signs that we're starting to see some pickup and some exciting areas of development out there.
Awesome. I think those are great closing remarks. Lucy, thanks a lot for taking the time. It was great talking to you, great understanding what you do and how you advance companies and founders. It's pretty cool. Thank you very much.
A pleasure. I really enjoyed it. Thanks very much.
And guys, thanks a lot for listening in. I'm pretty sure you also learned a lot from today's podcast. See you later.